Hello, everyone. Welcome to Truth Medicine. My name's Carrie. I'll be your host today. And if you don't know, Truth Medicine is all about exploring individual truth of women's stories, lessons, and life changing moments that have brought women to heal by living their medicine of truth. And today we have a very special and gentle soul, Amanda Gatlin, and she is an intuitive business coach and she empowers women, or actually people, to align their energy to confidence, leadership, and happiness. Hi, Amanda.
Hello, Carrie.
Thank you
Thank,
for go.
Thanks for inviting me here. I'm so honored and excited to be with you today.
I'm really excited to interview you. I met Amanda in Sedona when I was serving in Sedona, and we've always just had the most calm conversations, and there was like a
Yeah.
natural rapport between us. So um, I'm excited to explore your journey, how you got to your truth, how you got to do the work you do in the world. And for those that don't know, could you share a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I remember meeting you in Sedona, actually bumping into you a few times. It's always funny how you
Mhm.
meet people.
Yes.
But yeah, the what I do for people now, I mean, it's kind of like a culmination of my whole life, which is really beautiful, I think. I've finally reaching a place of feeling very integrated with everything that I've learned, and I think that we do that along our journey. I'm sure I'll talk about that here and there. And that is a big part of what I do with people anyway, which is I love that your show is called Truth Medicine because it is very much what I do with people. I'm always
Mm.
helping them to access their truth. And so it's really funny because my journey with that really started with my gifts and my abilities kind of bubbling up to the surface. But what I do right now is I'm an intuitive business coach. So I actually use my intuitive gifts and abilities, and I help people to use their own gifts and abilities. I help them to find those and bring them out to the world.
Wow, that's amazing. And I would love to go back to little Amanda. Did you know that you were going to be doing this kind of work when you were younger, or was it a journey? Like, was it something that you had to fight to find out what it was?
Yeah, so what's really funny when you say that, what comes to my mind is my mom showing me my baby book.
Mm.
And when she asked me what I wanted to be when I grow up, and I wrote, or she wrote for me, Dallas Cowgirl. I wanted to be a cheerleader.
I did too.
Yeah, and so what's funny is I totally see that in myself now.
Mm.
And I do that with people. Like I really feel like I cheer them on,
Mm.
in their journey. So the little girl in me, I think, knew exactly what she was doing or wanted to be. But my journey there actually started with me getting spirits coming to
Mm.
me and in my room, and me being very frightened by that. So I was very intuitive as a child, and I would rush to my parents to try to get help from them because I didn't understand this, and they would just tell me that it was dreams, and they would have a very kind of like basic answer for it and kind of calm me down. And so I would go to the library looking up dream books. And that kind of did help me. It kind of got me pointed in the right direction in terms of looking at things from not such a logical place. but rather seeking kind of like answers from everything around you, getting signs and symbols. So that's what the dream books kind of started in me. And, but I still didn't really understand what was happening. All through my childhood, I still had like visits of spirits coming, and I was a very kind of matter of fact child. I didn't get very emotional with movies and things. It was
Mhm.
always, I could see through, stuff. It wasn't like the emotion would really impact me very much. So I was sensitive. I'm definitely a sensitive, but at the same time, I had like this calm knowingness
Mhm.
about me. But
You still do.
I do,
Yeah.
but going through the whole spirit thing was not a calming experience. That was something that I fought with a lot. It was something that I didn't understand. I resisted it and was just frankly scared, of it. And I think it's because I didn't really understand it or know. So yeah, that was the young Mandy, young
Mhm.
Amanda.
I think it's really common that, when experiences happen like that when we're younger, that, it's scary and we don't know really what to do with it. And our parents are always like, oh, you're dreaming, or,
Yeah,
it's not real, like you're making things up. And that's the common story. I also had that same experience where, I mean, my parents didn't tell me it was a dream, but I would hear spirits, like they would talk to me, and
yeah,
it really did scare me. And I remember like praying to God. I'm like, God, I'll be a good girl. Please don't ever let this happen to me again. Like, please, like, I'll never do
yeah,
anything bad. And it stopped after that for a long time till I got older and, opened up to it a little more. Um,
yeah.
yeah. So when you were experiencing this, what moment was it that you're like, okay, like I'm actually going to listen to this and let this be used for good?
Oh, that's like way down the line.
Totally.
Yeah, I would say my aha moment was when I was really struggling with it. I was also struggling with some personal stuff in my life, not feeling very aligned about things. And I went to, I would call her like maybe a spiritual coach. Um, and she talked to me about all these things, and I really opened up to her and told her, about all these experiences. And then she said to me something that stuck with me for till now. I mean, a very long time. And she said, well, you're basically like ignoring them, and it's like you're walking down the street and there's a little girl on the street corner crying, and you're just passing her by. You're not even acknowledging her, or saying hello.
Mm-hmm.
um, and I was like, oh, I just felt so bad in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I felt so guilty and bad and like, oh man. And so she really opened my eyes and my mind and heart, to what was what I was experiencing, and that I do have this happening and it is a gift, and I really wasn't accepting it. And I really wasn't acknowledging, these visits and these people in like a compassionate way. So that opened me up to thinking of this differently. It really opened my eyes and made me feel like, okay, I need to approach this with my heart. And so that really shifted things in a big way for me.
So when did you discover that you were going to use your gifts to help people?
So what ended up happening was um, I ended up getting these visits continually, and I started to open up myself to them and ask them questions. And it really became about me having a conversation with them and not being flustered and not taking things personally and not getting scared. And that I would say they were like my first clients in a
Oh, wow.
way. Yeah, because these were spirits on the other side that I discovered they were stuck. They
Mm,
were trapped in this place and didn't know. Some of them didn't even know they were dead.
wow.
Some of them thought they were just waiting for someone. Like the one of them I can really remember, it was this Victorian woman that came to me, and I saw her at this train station, and the scene kept replaying. Now that was a common thing in a lot of the spirit visits that I had, was I was being shown a scene that would repeat.
Mm,
And for this woman, a train would pull up and people would come out, and it was like she was waiting for someone to come out, and the train doors would close, and then it would go away, and she would look very distraught, and then it would repeat. Train would come up, people would come out, and at some point I'm watching this scene, and I'm like, okay, this woman looks upset. I guess this is the one I'm supposed to talk to. So I went up to her, and I literally in my mind, almost like sitting with a friend,
mhm,
um, I I asked her, are you waiting for someone? And she said, yeah, I'm waiting for my husband.
mm. And she didn't know
And
she was dead.
she didn't know she was dead.
So is this is all happening in your mind?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I
So it
mean,
wasn't like a spirit would just come to you and you could actually see it in the physical. So it was all okay.
yeah, it was definitely within, whatever space I go to. I don't know how other mediums experience what they do, but
Mhm,
for me, it was definitely that it was playing over and over,
mhm,
in that space that I was experiencing. Now, this would happen to me usually when I was very relaxed. Like if I would go to sit down on my bed or on my couch and I was just chilling,
mm,
and I would get super relaxed. So it's almost like going into a meditative state.
mhm,
And that's when it would, you know, come on really strong. Now, I also would have spirits visiting me just, in plain daylight all the time. Like, and I would experience them in different ways, like them kind of like being outside of me.
mm.
But most of these experiences were more like in a meditation.
Yeah.
And I think at that point with that woman, that was kind of like the first experience I really remember where I wasn't scared, and I talked to her like a friend and helped her realize, um, you may have died. I
Oh,
tried to say it
wow.
in like the nicest way possible.
Totally.
Yeah, and help her realize, that. And then took her to a space of being in her heart, like remembering. That's something that I often do with people if I work with them, accessing their heart space and
Mm,
good memories.
mhm,
So, approaching what happened with love and remembering, the love she had with her husband, and then that shifted things. All of a sudden, she turned to light,
mm.
and
Wow.
she disappeared. And I knew, like,
Mhm,
if you do spirit work, you probably have experienced this, or what the light means. I mean,
mhm, mhm.
it's a good thing.
Right.
So I realized I was hitting on something there.
Mhm,
There, it kind of like, it made the dots all like everything added up. I was like, okay, there's a reason I can see this stuff,
Mm,
and maybe I can help. And so this happened more times. It would happen when
mm.
I go into meditation. I kind of feel like it was training for
That
me.
that's really cool to like experience working with souls through like the spirit world versus through here, and then eventually transferring to working with humans, you know. I've never heard that, so I just find that really fascinating that you were able to kind of prepare yourself in a
Yeah.
sense, you know, in the spirit world. Usually it's like the other way around, I think.
Probably.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's funny, they have been coming to me since I was little. So,
Mm,
I think now, like, if I had had the right guidance, when I was younger, how that would have changed things for me. But yeah, it was a turning point,
mhm,
for me to have
mhm,
that experience, and then to start understanding how important it was, like, to approach with compassion.
mm,
um, yeah, instead of
totally.
being in the mind and being frightened, by it.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So at what point was it that you transitioned to like, okay, I've been working in the spirit realm with these souls. Um, what point was it that you transitioned to working with
Real
people?
people.
Yeah. Or did they show up? Because I know sometimes people say like, oh, you know, this work found me, like people came to me.
Yeah.
Was that the same for you?
So it still was very spirit connected, which is
Hmm.
interesting. I love that you're asking me these questions because I'm like,
I'm
oh, that's so,
fascinated by it.
yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
I never thought this through like
Mm,
this, but yeah, so what ended up happening was some spirits would come to me wanting me to tell their family members
mm,
certain things. And I just felt very like, I'm not gonna do that.
right.
I'm not gonna call
Mm,
someone up and be like, hey, your mom's talking to me right now. And by the
mm,
way, like, she's saying this, this, and this. So again, I have another fun story, like an experience I can remember that kind of changed that. It was
mm,
probably my introduction to it connecting to human beings.
mm,
And that was, I was in the shower. So this is something I've discovered, is whenever I'm around water, if I'm
mm,
showering, on the toilet, or washing my hands, right? Or
mm,
swimming, whatever, in
mm.
water, it opens it up more.
It's like a
And
cleanse.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I also think it maybe water's like a conduit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So I was showering, and all of a sudden, this grandma like comes to me,
Mm,
and I'm like, oh God, what are you doing here? I'm showering,
mhm.
and so she's talking to me about this boy, um, who was across the alley from where we lived. And I immediately thought I knew who she was talking about, because the couple across from us has a son, that was currently living there. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I know who you're talking about, and didn't even ask her for clarification. And she just goes on, rambling about the boy and how he's going to meet this girl. They're going to get married. She wants them to have her ring. She describes what the ring looks like. She tells me she is the guy that lived there, the husband and wife, his mom. So this is the boy's grandma.
Mhm.
Explains all of this to me. And so I basically said to her, I was like, and she says, please tell them all this. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. You have to make that happen. Okay.
Mm,
So
mhm, mhm.
if spirit or angels or whatever can find a way to make that happen, then I will happily tell them.
Mm.
whatever,
Sure.
whatever it is. So 2 days later, and they never call this couple. I mean, like we know them from seeing them in the alley and interacting, but the mom calls the house, my house, and I'm like, no way. Because she never
Oh,
calls our
yeah.
place. She calls and she says, Mandy, did you guys leave our gate open for some reason? And I'm like, your back gate? And she goes, yeah. And I say, no.
Mm.
She's like, well, it's really strange because it's never open, but it was open. And I thought maybe you guys.
Wow.
And
Well,
I'm like, no, but now I have to tell you something. So that felt like my doorway, so to speak, to
mhm.
telling them. And so I start telling her these things, and she's like, Jim, she's yelling in the background, you need to come
Wow.
here. And he gets on the phone with me and we talk about it. And he's like, yeah, that sounds like my mom, for
Wow.
sure. And told him about the stuff with the boy. And he was like, okay, and we kind of put that aside. What ends up happening is months later, that story kind of drops away. We all forget about
Mhm.
it. But I had written in my journal that day everything she said to me. I jotted down all the
Mm.
notes from everything she said in a
Mhm.
page. Months later, they invite me to their Christmas party, and I'm sitting at this table, and in walks Jim's other son with his girlfriend, and they
Of
sit across from me at the table, and I
course.
see a ring on her finger, and
Wow.
I'm like, are you guys engaged? And she goes, yeah, we just got engaged. And I'm like, ah, wait
Wow.
right here. And I go running across the alley and I grab that page and I photocopy it on my printer and I bring it to them and I set it in front of them and I slide it across the table and she's reading it and she's like, her mouth is just dropping and she's kind of like, where did you get this? Or what is this?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So then, of course, she was like, do you do this for a living? Can you come to my house and do
Mhm.
parties? And I'm like, no, no,
No,
no,
no.
no.
Yeah, yeah. Only when it's
So
called.
yeah, and so that was my kind of a validation point
Mhm.
for me,
Mhm.
that I could tell spirits, you've got to make this happen. Like I was learning along the way. I
Mhm.
was learning that I could guide them, I could tell them like please go away if I didn't want it right now, or
Mhm.
I could tell them please come one by one, like um all these little things that I was learning,
Mhm.
really about boundaries too. I feel like they were really training me, not only because they would come and bombard me, and then I
Mhm.
had to learn, you know, to have these strong boundaries.
Yeah. I was just about to ask you about um like was there like a moment when everything was just flooding through? Because I know when I was really open, I kind of like am not as much open to it right now, but I remember really being open, and like at night I would just hear all the voices in my head like as I'm going to sleep. And there was a point where I was like, it just kept happening. I was like, put up a do not disturb sign, like, leave me alone. And that really helped, you know? But
Yes, I have a story very similar to that,
mhm,
where I kept waking up every night and would see all these white beings in my
mm,
room, and it was like a cocktail party. They were loud. It was like they were having the time of their life in my room, and I would wake up freaked out, of course. And the one time I learned, I went to the bathroom. I sat on the toilet and I was like, I just want to go to sleep. Can you guys just go away? And they
mm.
went away.
Yeah, they respond.
And
They totally listen.
yes.
Mhm.
Yes. So that was another moment for me where
Mm.
it clicked and I was like, okay, I can tell them what to do.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it was like I was in training for sure.
Totally, totally. So
Yeah.
for someone that's watching right now and maybe is having similar experiences and doesn't really know what to do, what advice could you give them for someone just like opening up to that and maybe scared? Like how can they know that it's,
Ooh.
pure?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I would say to that person, um, to really be in your heart about it.
Mm,
The same advice that I got, I think, when I was scared, and I would pass that on, that same advice, to people. I would say, know that you're safe, know that you can have those boundaries, with
mm,
them. They can't do anything to you, that you don't allow,
mhm,
and to be in your heart, with it, and to allow yourself to explore it from your heart. So
mm,
try to access like love energy or like a higher energy with
mm,
it, like a love energy with it.
mhm.
Yeah,
That's
because I see
that
people go down that other path with it, like letting whatever in, and not really
mm,
being in a place of love. And I think that's where it can go dark, or
totally.
get scary for
Mhm.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Thank you for that. And I think there's like so many people that are actually wanting to be psychic and a medium and it can be kind of dangerous, just being super open to whatever comes and it's like you don't really know what's out there. I mean, I think everything is possible, right? I think that anything can come through if you're like open to it. So I just encourage people to let it come to you if that's what's meant for you, if that's your path. I just see so many people that are wanting to be channel and a psychic, and it's just like we all have the abilities, right? I do believe that, but let it naturally unfold. There's a time for it. There's a time for humanity when that gift comes in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I think
Hmm.
that's great advice. Definitely. I feel, even with clients that I work with, you're right. A lot of them, they see mediums or psychics or channels or, whatever other people are doing, and they get attracted to it. And then when we really look at their life path, it's not really a match for them,
Hmm.
and like what their natural gifts are.
Yeah.
They get distracted, you
Hmm.
know, by what other people are doing. So yeah.
Totally. And it's like a little superpower. So I understand the draw to it. Almost
Yep.
I used to be really into going to psychics and I've learned a lot through going to psychics that I am the only one that knows my real truth, and almost every like healer or psychic I've gone to, they all say you're a channel, you're a medium and like I can feel that for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm like, like I'm that's gonna happen when it's really meant to, and I'm not gonna like try to push that to happen faster than it's meant to because if anyone should know that I'm a channel, it should be myself, not somebody just
Yes.
telling me. And so yeah, I guess I just want to emphasize that because there really is a divine order and sometimes it's not a match for everybody's life path like you said.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do feel like things unfold, so like, your gifts unfold, like experiences you go through, interactions you have, it all kind of like means something. All
Mhm.
the bits and pieces really do mean something, along the way. So it kind of is like a video game, where you're going
Yeah,
through it and you
I
have
believe
to
that.
attain some kind of
Mhm.
like level, and then you're like, oh, okay, now I can do this.
Mhm.
So it kind of gets you into your confidence more. And I do think you know, once you reach certain places with it, then you're more ready, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that can take a while, and that's okay, you know.
Totally.
Yeah, I think it's good to keep exploring. You know, definitely explore what lights you up. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that would be another thing I would tell a beginner, or someone who is trying to discover their gifts, um, is to really, really hone in on what makes you happy. You know, what makes you feel like lit up from inside, what you feel called to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for me, it was funny because mediumship is a part of my life. It is a part of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm learning that it's one piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
not, it doesn't define me. You know, people say I'm a medium. I'm like, and what else? You know,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm not about limiting yourself to you're just this or you're just that. You're definitely a whole mix of things. and
Absolutely.
and yeah, I think, you know, if you want to find your purpose, then, you know, or your truth, it's like really look at all those pieces, try
Mm-hmm.
to bring them all together and like let them all let it go, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
the movie Frozen, you know. Like let them all shine.
Mm-hmm.
Let them all kind of come together and work their magic, you know, so that it's like a complete you.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's all in perfect divine timing. I really believe that so strongly.
Hmm.
So,
Yes.
I'm curious about what was the moment that you were like, okay, this is my truth, or this is the way I need to go, but it was really hard. What was a moment that kind of you followed your truth or whatever way you were meant to go, and it kind of healed you into becoming who you are today?
Ooh. So there's two things that are coming up when you say that. One is more recently for me, which
Mm,
I'll hold on to that one.
okay.
And then the other one is, with my relationship that I had before. And that one is more defining, and I think was my first, because you asked like what was the moment, and I think
Mm,
that was really my first time really accessing my truth. And it was very powerful. And so I had been married for like 16 years
mm,
and was, a business owner. So my ex and I had a business together for pretty much that whole time. We started this business when we were kids, like say kids, but we
mhm,
were in college
mhm,
and started this business. It was a balloon and helium supply company.
mm.
And we grew it from nothing to where it was making like almost $1 million a year from a mom and pop from home.
Wow.
Incredible. Like
Mm.
we grew it year by year, and we did that with I mean a couple pickup trucks
Sure.
and some, you know, just really working hard.
So you made balloons for like events and parties and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's funny because that's what people assumed we did, and that's what we started out doing. Was, we thought it was going to be like a party business, and so we advertised it that way. And then we realized that really what we were good at was, helping businesses.
Mm,
So we started delivering helium tanks and bags of balloons to businesses, and we would set them up for them. This was all over Southern California.
mhm,
And we would show them how to use the tank. So we basically like empower them, to use this thing to advertise their company or to give balloons to kids or use it in whatever way, when we showed them many ways that you could use this thing to like your advantage. And so we probably within a year or two realized that was really our niche. It wasn't the one or two balloons or like people wanting a couple balloons for a party. So we shifted, in our business and our branding and all of that, and we started going to businesses and working with them and talking to them and showing them what they could do with this. And it was cool because we were seeing them get more business from it. So then they would share it, with their like sister properties, like apartment communities. They would share it with other properties, to get business. So we grew really fast. We
Awesome.
expanded really fast. Now, fast forward, a lot of work, a lot of sweat, a lot of tears. But fast forward, like I would say maybe 10 to 12 years down the road, we're reaching burnout at this point. We
Sure.
are working 24/7. We didn't know how to expand properly. We didn't get help with that. We didn't have, people to show us the way, to say, hey, you need employees, you need, you need an accountant, like you need help, we were doing it all ourselves. And we would take breaks, we would have fun, we would do things, but what was starting to happen was our true selves were starting to kind of emerge more. And I think that happens when you're under pressure and when you're not really living your truth. So when you're kind of like squelching, who you really are and not tapping into it at all, it kind of starts to show itself. Like it just starts emerging, from you.
So you're saying in like contrast, like if you're not living your true self, that you're going to be like forced to face your truth?
Definitely.
Cool.
Yeah. So I feel like it never hides. It can't. It's impossible for you to like keep it hidden forever.
Yeah.
It just won't let you do that.
Can you
So
can you give an example? Just for those listening that are probably like, "What?"
So I would say in really heated moments, like when my ex and I would have it out, under very like stress, what would we turn to calm ourselves in those moments of stress? He would turn to religion, which was his upbringing, what he was raised with, and like what he truly dedicated himself to up into a certain point, and then kind of like, again, hid it, like put it under wraps. And I was turning to spirituality and meditation. And I felt that like it was literally coming up in me. I remember being really burnt out and hearing I needed to go to meditation, and I had never meditated. Like I didn't grow up in a meditative family. I didn't know what that was, but here I am hearing that. And I was like, okay, I will go, I kind of would say to myself, I'll go find a meditation class at some point, right? Here I am burning myself out even more. And then really hearing like, I need to go do this. So I did seek out a local place where I could go learn, and didn't know what I was doing, went there. And this was kind of like the turning point where after I started going there for a little bit, my ex and I started to feel like we were splintering. Like our truths were really truly being exposed. Like we could not we could not hide this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to have some really hard talks and hard discussions about that and go get help. We talked to a bunch of therapists about it. It took a couple years,
Mm-hmm.
for us to like dig through all of that and start becoming okay with who we truly were. And the I would say the issue came up with that, which I see this in relationships with people a lot, and I know people have a hard time with it. I was very much like being the people pleaser
Mm-hmm.
in the relationship, not really owning my truth,
Mm-hmm.
trying to make this thing work, because we had been together so long. We had successful business, a successful
Mm-hmm.
life. And here we were, like, this mess, happening, which I call it a mess, but it was like a blessed mess, in a
Blessed
way.
mess.
Yeah.
I love that.
But, here we were, and I'm trying to make this thing work, and he was really wanting it to work.
Mm-hmm.
And he had his ideas about how he thought it should work.
Mm-hmm.
And I would try them, but it just didn't feel right,
Mm-hmm.
to me. It didn't feel like a fit to
Mm-hmm.
me. And so I think of anything, that's another thing that I would share with people, your audience or anyone I talk to, about living in your truth. It can be really hard, especially in relationships, to
Mm-hmm.
feel accepted,
Mm-hmm.
in your truth. But it really comes from you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're willing to love yourself and to let your truth shine, you will attract the right people around you,
Mm-hmm.
and
That's
other things will fall away.
mm-hmm.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
what happened for my husband and I.
So you were just like, I gotta be real with myself and follow this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we saw a few people, and I remember a really kind woman that was helping us. She was telling him, it's like you're keeping her like a caged bird,
Mm.
you know. And I was really like, I was telling her, like, I'm having a hard time here because I want to be happy with him, but we're not happy. And it's because we're both not owning, who we
Mm.
are. And
Do you think if you both would have owned who you really are, who you really were at that time, do you think that you guys could have worked it out?
now looking back, and I do see this with people, because this is kind of the work I was doing with people for a little while, like recently.
Mm-hmm.
And I do work with people on that, and I do help them, because when you go through a spiritual awakening, which to me, it's like you're owning your truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's an
Mm-hmm.
opening, and it can be that you have it and you realize you're super religious.
Mm-hmm.
This is what was happening for my ex. He was having a spiritual awakening too. And I think if you can get help with that, going through that, and understanding it, and being able to communicate to one another. And also, what's really important is to understand that it's not good to try to control the other person through it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where you lose your mate, or where
Mm-hmm.
you lose each other.
Mm-hmm.
When you try to put ultimatums or
Mm-hmm.
requirements
Mm-hmm.
on the other person. And so, it could be that you feel like, I just can't live with this in this kind of situation. It's not nurturing me. And that's totally fine too. I think you have to call that,
Mm-hmm.
for yourself. But yeah, I think it is possible for people to coexist and be in different camps,
Yeah.
you know?
I know there's a lot of people that are in relationships that, feel like they're in some way like hiding who they really are in fear of losing their person, and I know that there's like a stifledness that happens when we don't truly allow ourselves to be exactly who we are. What advice could you give someone that's going through that challenge of like, oh, I know there's this part of me that's so much more expressive and vibrant and wants to be this way, but is so scared of being that way because they don't want to lose the relationship?
Yeah, I would definitely tell them that, okay, first I would say, like, the chips are going to fall where they're going to fall. Like,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
don't think you have control over that. So, first, it's like be accepting that whatever is going to happen is supposed to happen. Like, kind of give yourself that gift of like surrender,
Mhm.
in a way, because it could fall apart
Totally.
and it might need to.
And it takes time for someone to come to that point to be like, okay, well, maybe I'm not meant to be with this person, you know? And that's something I have to
Yes.
accept. So, yeah, that's a hard place to get to, too, a full surrender and acceptance.
Yeah. And that for me, it took time. It really took me like checking in every day for myself and asking myself
Mm,
over a period of time, am I happy? And I did that for myself every morning. I would check in, and it was a no for a
mhm,
long time. And at some point, I was like, this isn't good. At some point, you kind of have to say, okay, things need to change,
mhm,
and no matter what we were doing, we were getting help. That would be the other thing that I would say. What I see for a lot of people in that situation is like, what I would say is do your best to try, like, do communicate,
mhm,
do do let the person know, what you're experiencing and
mhm,
what you are going through. Do it from a place of love. Don't try to get them on board. Like,
mhm,
don't think that what you're going through means they need to go through it too,
mhm,
because your journey is probably very unique from
mhm,
theirs.
mhm. And I think a lot of people buy into the vision of love, meaning like they buy into this unrealistic vision that they think it could be, to the potential. And it never really goes to that.
Yeah. I mean, what you're where we're getting at is really what I love doing with people now, which is
Mm,
getting them into their what I call their leadership and
mm,
their path,
mm,
and owning it, and not worrying about what your mate is up to, or
mhm,
not trying to make something work with them that isn't working,
mhm.
or buy into some romantic,
Vision. Yeah.
crap. Yeah, I
Mhm,
mean, but really, like, really looking at your path as a unique path.
mhm,
But what happens is people get so distracted.
mhm,
And I think relationships is an area where they do get distracted. They don't see it. They, like you're saying, they put so much on the relationship,
mhm.
and that is just a piece of it.
Totally.
It isn't like it isn't like, I guess what I want to say is, you don't have to have this thing where the two of you are like this complete match, and that you have to make that work somehow.
Mhm,
The beauty, the uniqueness of, like, like, I'm thinking of a flower and all the individual flowers.
mhm,
What makes that beautiful is that they're all super unique, and you know and they're owning that.
mhm,
So
mhm,
if you are able to keep yourself in that space of like exploring yourself more, like
mhm,
exploring your truth, and then what gets really exciting is when you can sit down and have a conversation with your mate and you can explore your truth with them
Mhm.
and get excited about their truth
Exactly. Yeah.
and not try to make it so you're both a match to something, but rather helping each other expand into what your truths are
Mhm.
and supporting each other in that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah,
That's big.
totally. That's so beautiful. I'm glad you said that. And I think so many couples, they think that we take things so personal, and I know I do it too. Like if my partner does that, what does that mean about me? Like, am I being left behind, or do I have to do that? Like, is that my way too? And really, it's like I do think two people can coexist if they have the awareness and maturity to know that each person is their own person and they're going to have their own way. And the more you can nurture that and accept that and allow that, I think the more prosperous relationship you'll have.
Oh yeah, and I think this is it's perfect you're saying that because it makes me think of our political climate right now,
Mhm.
and allowing people to be who they are and for everyone to be able to coexist in
Totally.
that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that you're bringing up really good stuff because it's
Mm,
like that question you asked about, could we have coexisted? I'm
mm,
sure we could have,
mm,
but we didn't have the help. We didn't have someone saying to us or training us in this,
mm,
showing us how maybe, one or the other, how we were trying to make the other one be like the other,
mm,
you know, and how you really have to surrender that and listen,
mm,
to the other person and what's going on for them.
mm. I want to go back a little bit where you're talking about if you don't follow your truth, in contrast, it will kind of keep showing itself.
Hmm.
What you have to go to like feel better. I saw on one of your posts you posted trust your inner turmoil. It's there for a reason, helping to guide you forward. And I really love that because I would think that's the opposite. If I'm in inner turmoil, that means I'm not on the right path. But I like your perspective of trusting it because it's there for a reason to guide you forward. Can
Yeah.
you go a little deeper into what you're meaning by that?
So that was a client of mine. She brought that up to me and said those words
Mm,
because I said the words nagging. Do you have that nagging for something? And she goes, "Oh yeah, that's the inner turmoil." And I was like,
mm,
"That's so perfect." And yeah, I mean, for me, it's always when I'm in the turmoil, like the relationship thing,
mm,
where really my truth is there.
mm,
It's sitting there, like
mm,
waiting for you.
mm.
But we get so wrapped up in the drama of the turmoil part of
Mm.
it.
So good. So good. Yes.
We interpret this thing as like a problem. And
Mm,
so then we start trying to fix the problem,
mm,
like the relationship. I was trying to fix it,
mm,
you know, instead of like having conversations about what our truth was,
mm, mm,
like how different is that? What a
mm,
different conversation is that? Rather than, trying to fix something
mm,
that it isn't supposed to be fixed.
mm,
When you get in that spot of trying to fix it in that way, I feel like it keeps you stuck
mm,
and
mm,
it keeps you trapped, rotating around in trying to get it better, or then you're analyzing, pieces of it and all of that. And it's almost like focusing on the negative aspect,
mm,
the negative energy of it, and trying to come up with a solution from the negative which I don't think ever works.
Right.
I think when you come at it from what is our truth here, and it could be different for each of you, you can come up with a solution from that. That's way more positive, and it gets you into like accepting and honoring and really positive things, really positive energy. It gets you moving forward too, as opposed to getting stuck in that, the repairing it and, fixing it and all of that. More recently, that was the thing I put on hold to talk about. My inner turmoil recently. That was me earlier this year, multiple times getting hit with vertigo. And I was still doing mediumship readings. I was still working with people on that level. And yet in meditation, I was constantly hearing to stop doing them. And I wasn't listening. And I kept doing them and I kept doing them because people knew me that way. And my clients were calling me, to do them. And so I was just letting it happen. And vertigo would come up and get me. And I don't know if you've had vertigo. If people haven't had it, to kind of give a really quick, explanation, vertigo is just a easy word for dizziness. But for people who've had it, what this is like. You usually experience it in the middle of the night when you flip over. In the middle of the night, you get up or you flip over really fast and you get up and then everything in the room is sloshing around like this. And you're grabbing the walls or grabbing the floor. Your body goes into a state of panic. It's like a panic attack. You get the sweats really quickly. And then almost immediately, like if you're a person that gets seasick, you just start vomiting. Like you just get sick really, really hard and fast. And so that was happening repeatedly for me. And I would go to doctors to get my answers. And they were like, here's a pill, here's a pill, here's a pill. Right? Not getting into my truth at all. This was all like what we all talk about in the spirit world about how easy it is for people to take pills and how that doesn't give you your answers. It was not giving me my answers at all. And it was helping my symptoms. So it was helping me not get sick to my stomach. It was helping me kind of like feel like I could kind of stand upright, but at some point this was really getting to me. I went through a lot of challenge with it mentally, feeling like a burden to my, husband now, because I couldn't really do much, in this state. It takes time to recoup from vertigo, like a couple days to weeks sometimes.
So were you getting it all the time?
At least once a month.
Wow.
I was getting it. Yeah.
And you think it's because you weren't listening?
Well, so my husband was on Instagram looking through, like, scrolling. He kept hitting on this gal who did EFT. And some of the things kind of connected, like she lived in Sedona and we that's how we met you, but it was like some things were standing out about her that were common things. And he knew I had used EFT a long time ago with my divorce too. And he remembered that. And he said, maybe you should reach out, to this gal and ask her, how much a session or two, do some work with her. And I decided to do a couple months of work with her to really explore this. And it within 2 weeks, I could tell things were shifting.
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing tapping together, EFT tapping.
For those of you who don't know, it's called emotional freedom technique. It's basically where you're tapping powerful meridians and your point to release stuck emotions.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she does this along with doing, she calls it transcendental tapping.
Mm.
So she's channeling while she's doing the tapping and working with kind of like your higher self. And so she'll ask you, to talk about what you're experiencing, whatever fears, whatever things you're going through, and to really, so she gets an idea, of what you're struggling with. And most of mine was just this fear of the vertigo. Am I going to live with this my whole life? It pops up by surprise, like just terrified about every aspect,
Mm-hmm.
about it. And so she would work with me on whatever my current fear was, with it. And I worked with her for 3 months. In the
Mm.
3 months, I had no symptoms.
Wow.
Yeah. And then at the very end of working with her, I had a small attack of the vertigo come back
Mm.
up.
Mm.
Just really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But in that time of working with her, I was working on really like, which was really beautiful about what she was doing with me, really working on getting back into my intuition, into my heart, listening to my truth, right?
Mm.
Really discovering like what I was not doing and not listening to. And something that kept coming up was about how I was still doing the medium readings.
Mm.
And it was very powerful. In working with her, I made the decision to let that go, to
Wow.
say, I'm not going to promote it anymore. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm releasing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still in transition with that. Like
Totally.
I still have clients that come to me. I do it by text. I found that if I shifted it to doing it by text, that I was like, for some reason, energetically, it wasn't hitting me as hard.
Mm. Why do you think that you're being called not to use that gift anymore? Do you think you're being, yeah, why do you think that you're,
So when I was working with her and I got into my heart more, what
mm-hmm.
I started feeling was the people I really wanted to be working with was more like people who wanted to grow businesses and people who wanted to shine their gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I was working with people doing medium readings, it was like people just wanted to hear from
Mm-hmm.
their loved one.
Okay, I see.
They didn't want to, even though their gifts would often come up in the reading, right? Like that was often something that they wanted to cover or, hear about. And that would come up in the session,
Mm.
usually like
Mm-hmm.
90% of the time, it would, I would say. But it wasn't like they were going to go any further
Mm-hmm.
with it. So again, like we're talking about truth, I had to start to explore this a little bit more and really say this, my heart is telling me, that I am supposed to be doing, I'm moving on is what I'm doing. Like,
Yeah.
I can use my gift of mediumship still. And often I do. Like it's not uncommon for me to get messages for people, all the time from
Mm-hmm.
their loved ones, but it's not all I'm going to be doing with
Yeah.
people.
That's what I feel. I'm like, you are being called to work in a different way with people. And if you would have stayed just a medium, that's all the clientele you would get is people that just want to know that. So I think
Yeah,
it's cool to have to still continue to help people with their gifts. Like you still have a gift to help people find their unique gifts and just in a different way now. So that's really exciting. But
definitely.
but it took you like doing the tapping and like
Getting
surrendering.
sick.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a perfect process,
Mm,
like I think a lot of people experience this stuff. I know people who come to me, that they're like, I'm experiencing this symptom or that symptom in my body. And now, it gave me compassion, more compassion for those people more than ever before,
mhm,
to really grasp and understand how much our bodies are trying to help us, to guide us back,
mhm.
on track, and to see those symptoms as just like a warning call,
Yeah.
something that's coming up that's like, hey, stop, slow down, pay
Mhm.
attention,
Mhm.
get some breathing room here. And
Mhm.
I think what was big for me was getting help,
Mhm.
really finding the right person.
Yeah, we're not meant to do it alone. And I think so many people think that they can handle it by themselves or they don't need help or they don't even think about having someone to help them. But like we have guidance here, we have wise counsel. So, anyone struggling with something that hasn't thought about getting help, seek counsel, seek wise counsel because, yeah, we're not meant to do it alone here.
No.
Yeah.
I couldn't have. I know that now. I was definitely hitting my road, the end of the road for myself with that.
Mhm.
Like I was definitely feeling desperate, and my heart goes out to people, that feel that
Mhm.
way, but I want them to know there's help out there. Like
Mhm.
you just have to open your mind, to not always thinking it's the traditional way that's going
Mhm.
to help you, like medicine of the traditional sense, like our
Pills.
doctors. Yeah.
Although I do think sometimes the Western medical system can intervene and it could be really good.
Yeah.
However, their focus is to cover the symptoms and not the root. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and that I am grateful for the medication I was given,
Mhm.
because oh my gosh, like to not be puking the entire night, like we have come far,
Mhm.
in a medical sense.
Mhm.
Like there are things that they know. I'm sure these pills they're using come from plants and things
Mhm.
that, come from nature. And I am grateful for that,
Mhm.
because but that was the first piece of it. I don't want people to stop there.
Right.
Like, don't stop with just getting the medicine to help you. If you do need that, go get it so
Mhm.
that you can feel like yourself or a little bit better. You
Mhm.
may not feel completely like yourself, on medication. I don't think
Mhm.
you will. But at least it can give you that kind of like, okay,
I
you
can breathe.
know, yeah, like I don't have to live in this distress,
Mhm. Mhm.
forever. So but that's the first step.
But yeah, you got to do the work. There's
Yeah.
no way around it. People have to do the work if they want to live emotionally free. And
Yes.
yeah, what would be some tools that you would give somebody that was going through emotional turmoil?
Oh my gosh. I mean, really digging into your truth. Like
Mhm.
really, like this show, says
Mhm.
it all.
Mhm.
I've been using a practice that that gal gave me, where I put my hands over my heart
Mhm.
and I tune into what I know is true for me
Mhm.
right now, like what I feel called to do right
Mhm.
now,
Mhm.
you know? And I do my best to, I not only hear it now, right? Because it was coming up for me in my meditations. I think that people probably get halfway there. Like they get to the point where maybe they are using tools like meditation or something, they're going to a person to get help and they're hearing, this is your truth now, right? So they
Mhm.
get halfway there, they hear it, but then what are you doing to make that happen?
Mm.
Like, what are you doing to get that out there?
Mm.
And that's where I know, because the people I'm working with now, it's so cool when they reveal to me, like they'll say things to me like, I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just really scared
Mhm.
walking that.
Mhm.
And I that's where I get to like tell them I'm here for you.
Mm.
Like
You
we
get the
get
whole.
to, yeah, hold their hand.
Mhm.
Yep. And so that's where I would say, don't hesitate to get that help. Find the right person, a coach, a leader, someone you aspire to be, a friend, even your mate.
Mhm.
Hopefully, they're
Mm.
supportive. But a
Totally.
lot of times, that was also a mistake that I would love to like just a quick share for people. I was putting a lot of pressure on my mate, like current mate now,
Mm.
to have all the answers. And I was
Right.
so frustrated because here I think this is my mate. He should listen to me and hear me and know what I should do next.
Mm. Oh.
And he has no clue,
Right. R
He's so sweet and he listens, but like he has no clue. He's not an expert in, me hearing that I'm supposed to be working with people, helping them bring their gifts forward, helping them, shine their light and bring their businesses forward. That's not his specialty. That's not
Right.
that's not his gift.
Right.
So I would say to people that I think that's another area where people probably make a mistake, with their friends or their
Mm.
family, or their mates.
Mhm.
Is hoping that they're going to have the answers, and a lot of times I mean, probably all the time they don't.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially family members. I mean, they're so sweet, but like
Mm.
their opinions about things, and then
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and that's why it's important for people to tune in with their heart, tune in with I'm discovering what individual truth is, and sometimes I think it's really like you'll know your truth by knowing if you're in your heart or not. And I think
yeah,
that that's ultimately how you discover your truth is by dropping into your heart, and then your individual truth reveals itself.
yeah.
So
That was what you asked me, and that is the golden tool, I would say. I totally agree.
yeah.
Hmm.
Amanda, it's been so great hearing, part of your journey and your story, and I'm sure there's more in there. And um, I'm really honored that you had the courage to share all that because a lot of people get scared to share about their mediumship and psychicness. So thank you for
Yeah,
that. I have one
yeah.
last question. It's my signature question. What's one token of truth that you can offer somebody who's just beginning their journey of self-awareness, that could potentially help guide them along the way to discovering their medicine of truth?
Yeah, I love that question. The thing I would say is, for beginner, this was another thing that happened to me, and it was a big aha moment for me when I transitioned from being in college working for someone to actually saying, okay, I'm going to leave this job.
Hmm.
And that thing I would say to people is to listen to the thing that you are repeating over and over again.
Mm.
So if you keep complaining about something, right, or you keep repeating something like a desire, um, try to grab it, try to pay attention to it, try to like hear it, and listen to it. Usually, I find that stuff happens to me when I am complaining, and
Mm-hmm.
then I get frustrated in the
Mm-hmm.
complaining, right? We were
Mm-hmm.
talking about that earlier. I get attached to that part of it that's not good, like the negative part of it. But if you can, after you complain or vent or whatever, sit and maybe journal or ask yourself, like, what's my desire here?
Mm-hmm.
What is the thing that's really on my heart? Um, I think that's big.
Mm-hmm.
If you can shift it, from like complaining to like really hearing what you are repeating.
Yeah.
That's your truth. That's your
Wow.
truth. So
Mm-hmm.
if you can grasp that, like, and sometimes I think you can see it in your journal. Like if you journal a lot, people that are journalers, you can go back to your journal and see the thing you're repeating
Mm-hmm.
and underline it or circle it.
Mm. That's so good.
Yeah,
That's so beautiful.
yeah,
Thank you for that. Well,
definitely.
if this inspired somebody and they want to find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can find me by my name, Amanda Gatlin, on any of those social medias. And then my website is bepassionateandprosper.com.
Ooh,
Yeah. So if they want to find me on my website, that's where they can find me.
awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. And if you're watching this and this inspired you, or you know somebody that it could potentially help, please share it because, like I say, you never know who this might help and serve. And I just want to thank everybody for watching. And until next time, you guys have a beautiful week.